Hi, this is Melissa, the Stamp Doc. Today I'm sharing a new tutorial for Splitcoaststampers called Floating Cardstock Strips. Let's get started. You're going to want to start with basic white cardstock, and you're going to cut it to 4 1/4 by 11 and score it at 5 1/2. And then we have a top layer for that at 4 inches by 5 1/4. You'll need a window sheet or acetate measuring 3 3/4 by 5, and then a variety of cardstock strips. Most of mine are cut to a 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch width, and then the length can be any size. Go ahead and get your acetate sheet ready, and I like to line mine up on some grid paper. You could also use a ruler, but I just do this to keep my lines pretty straight. I'm going to be using some liquid adhesive, but you can use any type of adhesive that will have a strong enough hold to hold paper to that window sheet. And I'm just going to start at the very bottom, and I'm using 4 different colors of cardstock. So I'm just going to add those throughout that acetate sheet. So I usually will put one at the top, one at the bottom, and then just fill in between. You're going to want to leave some space in between each one where the window sheet will peek through, and that's what will help give that the illusion of floating off of your card base. Now you do want to be careful with using the liquid glue. You don't want to use too much because you don't want that coming out and showing through on the adhesive sheet. So use that pretty sparingly. I do like to use it just because I can kind of wiggle those around a little bit too. It gives you a little bit more versatility and a little bit more wiggle room with the liquid glue. So continue doing that, and you'll notice too that I use some strips that are 1/4 inch, some that are 1/2 inch. You can either do those all the same width, or you can do them different as I've done here. I like the interest that it gives with doing those at different widths. If you watch to the end of the video, I've got some other samples I'll share with you. But once you've got all of those put in place, you're going to have to give it a little bit of time to dry. So generally, I want to say I give this at least a good 5 minutes to dry to get really good and adhered on there. And then once you've got that all completed, so this is what's going to take you the longest amount of time, is just getting those strips placed and then waiting for them to dry. So once they're dry, just flip your sheet over. And you can tell my glue's still a little bit wet there, but I wanted to go ahead and get this done. You just want to make sure those strips aren't going to wiggle. And you're going to trim off any excess from the sides. So that's pretty easy to do. If you prefer, you could go ahead and die cut this with some of your shapes. I found that my Big Shot would do this, but it did take a couple of passes through the machine to get it to work. Next, I'm using some foam adhesive strips, and I'm just putting those over those wider strips that were on the front. So those camouflage this adhesive really well. And I put about 4 or 5 depending on the size of the sheet that I'm using. So feel free to use however many you need. You just want enough that it's going to adhere to the card base. So I took my top layer and I put it onto my card base, and I did that with some dimensionals so that again it had a little bit of more oomph to it. Peeling off the backing of those strips, and then I'm going to apply that to the front of my card. Now I've already die cut and stamped my focal point. So I'm going to adhere this cute little die cut from the Iconic Dies on there. And then I have a cute little sentiment that says hello there from the Peekaboo Farm stamp set. And I'm adding just a few square gems to that also. So I like to add those cute little embellishments. And there we have our finished card. So this is quick and simple and something you can do with cardstock strips that you may have laying around now. As you can see, I've got another sample here with a different card color scheme, and this one I actually die cut the circle. So thank you so much for watching today.